Home, which should be a haven, can even be less of a safe space during curfew if someone is experiencing child abuse. If you or anyone you know is being abused, help is nearby. For emergencies, call 911. They will redirect your call to the relevant agencies. For general guidelines and inquiries, call the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, MASH, at 1-800-534-2273 or 945-0545. Alternatively, email mash@gov.ky. Home, which should be a haven, can even be less of a safe space during curfew if someone is experiencing child abuse. If you or anyone you know is being abused, help is nearby. For emergencies, call 911. They will redirect your call to the relevant agencies. For general guidelines and inquiries, call the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, MASH, at 1-800-534-2273 or 945-0545. Alternatively, email mash@gov.ky. home, which should be a haven, can even be less of a safe space during curfew if someone is experiencing child abuse. If you or anyone you know is being abused, help is nearby. For emergencies, call 911. They will redirect your call to the relevant agencies. For general guidelines and inquiries, call the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, MASH, at 1-800-534-2273 or 945-0545. Alternatively, email mash@gov.ky. Home, which should be a haven, can even be less of a safe space during curfew if someone is experiencing child abuse. If you or anyone you know is being abused, help is nearby. For emergencies, call 911. They will redirect your call to the relevant agencies. For general guidelines and inquiries, call the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, MASH, at 1-800-5...
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's press briefing on the coronavirus. I'm Donna Bush. Welcome to you, our viewers here on the channel, as well as those joining us on our social media platforms and via Radio Cayman. We go first to our prayer with Pastor Andrew Campbell.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Campbell, pastor of the West Bay Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I'd like to invite you to join me for a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you right now because you've promised to be with us, especially in our times of trouble. And so we know that you are listening today. We ask for your continued guidance to our leaders of government who are working tirelessly to protect us. We ask for your protection and your care over our healthcare workers who are on the front line, battling to save lives in this time of crisis. We lift up also our workers in essential services who are working hard to make sure that even under lockdown, we have what we need to survive this storm. May you provide for their needs as they provide for ours. I pray that you will bless us as a people with patience. Bless us with a cooperative spirit. Help us to unite around the common goal of saving as many as possible and eradicating this disease from our shores. I pray that you will be with those for whom financial hardship has now set in. May they see evidence of your hand working in their lives to provide for all their needs. And most of all, O God, I pray that you will be near to us now, because we know that with Christ in the vessel, we can survive any storm. You've brought us through difficult times before in the past, and we know you can do it again. We put our trust in you today. In Jesus' name, amen.
And thank you, Pastor Campbell. Also joining us in our studio, we'd like to welcome our panelists, His Excellency the Governor, the Honourable Premier, and the Honourable Minister of Health. Joining us in the studio, our Chief Medical Officer, the Commissioner of Police, the Director of HMCI, and our sign language interpreter, as well as members of the media are joining us via Zoom, along with the Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Samuel Williams Rodriguez. We go first now for an update from Dr. John Lee.
Good afternoon. You'll remember yesterday the PCR machines at the Health Services Authority were undergoing quality checks and scheduled maintenance, which has now been complete. I have a small number of 8 negative reports to give to you today. There is another 150 samples that are actually running through the process at this moment, but the results are only going to be available later on this afternoon. And there are some 700 odd results that are still pending. Of these, 80 are being prioritized, which includes the 50 odd people who are on the British Airways flight and 30 odd samples for clinical reasons. There is no change to the numbers of symptomatic, asymptomatic, and so on, apart from the fact that the people who have been suffering are all improving, including the inpatients who are suffering symptoms. I just wanted to make a pre-announcement that tomorrow's 2 o'clock afternoon will not be a press conference in the current format. 3 of the clinicians from across the country, Dr. Jefferson from the Health Services Authority, the medical director, Dr. Archita, who's the microbiologist from Health City, and Dr. Stephen Gay, an anaesthetist at the Doctors Hospital, will be here to present a clinical presentation of how COVID-19 is being managed on the islands, and should there be a flare-up, what they plan to do. That will be, the press will be invited to that. I'm not sure if they have been yet, but they will be invited to that in order that they can field questions to the medical panel. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lee. We're going to go first to Kayla from the Cayman Compass. She has, I believe, one question for you. Kayla?
Hi, Dr. Lee.
Afternoon.
I wanted to ask, good afternoon. I wanted to ask about the number of cases considered recovered or clinically better. People are wondering why we're not seeing that number increase, given that, we think of 14-day timeframes with COVID-19.
I myself am expecting that in the bunch of results that we're about to get, we're going to see a jump up of the recovered number, because I know I have seen, as I think I mentioned a few days ago, I've seen people have their first exit test. I recognize the names, and on my spreadsheet I can see they've had the first exit test. They're just waiting for that second exit test, and there were a lot of those. So there should be a big jump shortly. Clearly, we had not very many people early on in the scenario, and then the numbers increased, and so that's being reflected here. And there's always a lead time on the results being available. The person has to be tested, it has to go through the system, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you. And for the asymptomatic patients, I imagine that they as well will go through this retesting process to verify they're no longer contagious.
Absolutely. Everybody that was positive will go through will be required to have 2 tests at least 24 hours apart, within 48 hours of each other, to be negative before they will be deemed good to be considered COVID-free.
Okay. And have those individuals always been asymptomatic, or is this something that can fluctuate with the disease?
No, some of them have had symptoms and then they got better. So it's not they all were asymptomatic. No, many of them will have had, some of them quite mild, some of them stronger, but then they're feeling better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. I do have a question for you, Dr. Lee. We knew that this was coming. It's more of a personal one, but everybody wants to know where you got your haircut.
Well, I have a friend who's got a chain of stores across the island, and I texted him and said, I really need to know when the clippers are in. And so that's what I did this morning. I had an extra half an hour in the bathroom, and I'm hopefully looking a bit smarter today.
And of course, the panel looks great. They always say that one. All right, now we'd like to call on the Commissioner of Police. Dr. Lee, thank you very much for his update.
Good afternoon. Very quiet overnight. No significant issues of a policing nature to report. Crime remains very stable and the hard curfew continues to operate very well. Little Cayman overnight, no issues. Cayman Brac, 21 vehicles stopped by police, 2 persons in 1 vehicle found in breach of hard curfew and warned for prosecution. Grand Cayman, 231 vehicles stopped by police overnight, no drivers found in breach of curfew. Separately, 2 pedestrians and 1 pedal cyclist were stopped by police in breach of curfew and warned for prosecution. Since 6 a.m. this morning, 3 persons were found in breach of shelter-in-place regulations or soft curfew. 1 person was engaged in commercial work activities without exemption. The remaining 2 persons, they were motorists out without lawful purpose. All 3 received tickets for breach of soft curfew regulations. This morning, businesses at supermarkets, banks, pharmacies and gas stations all operated well. Operations were well controlled, well managed, with social distancing protocols being followed. Our helicopter and marine units remain deployed on extended tours, monitoring marine and ground activities. Just to bring to your notice some issues that are consistently appearing on the police radar system. Speeding trucks continue to cause problems, underlined by a very serious traffic accident this morning in the Eastern District involving a truck and a car. The driver had to be cut from the car. It appears he will survive, but with serious injuries. Speeding is also reported at Spots Newland, West Bay and Easterly Tibbets Highway. Please slow down to save lives. I previously mentioned the need for pedestrians and motorists to exercise great caution and road courtesy, particularly mid-evening at dusk or sunset or just before the hard curfew at 7 p.m. With the increased numbers of persons out jogging and exercising, both drivers and persons exercising need to exercise extreme caution to avoid accidents. Please be careful and be alert. A reminder, we return to hard curfew this evening at 7 p.m, running through to 5 a.m. in the morning. This is a hard curfew and no persons other than exempted essential services personnel on duty should be out and about away from their homes during these hours. Exercise in public places is permitted for a period of 90 minutes between the hours of 5:15 a.m. and 6:45 p.m. Monday to Saturday. Public beaches remain in full lockdown until 5 a.m. on Friday, the 1st of May 2020. This coming Sunday, the 26th of April 2020, is a full 24-hour hard lockdown or hard curfew period. Police mobile and static patrols will remain in place across the islands to enforce the curfew and shelter-in-place regulations. And just a note, with the agreement of His Excellency the Governor and the Honourable Premier, from today the RCIPS will move to a weekly or fortnightly briefing on COVID-19 police-related issues and will be available as required otherwise to deal with any police-related COVID-19 issues that are of interest to the listening public. I take this opportunity to thank His Excellency the Governor, the Honourable Premier and Minister Seymour for their excellent leadership during this period of crisis. I thank the listening public for their support to the RCIPS, and I say a special thank you to our communities across the Cayman Islands for their patience and understanding with the RCIPS teams, and I include the men and women of the RCIPS and my colleagues from CBC, Special Constabulary and Work, who are working long hours to keep the island safe and who are a central part of the operation to keep the Cayman Islands safe and protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We do have a question for you from Wendy at CNS. Wendy? Wendy, are you there? Okay, it appears that she's not there, so we will thank you,
Great. Thank you.
Commissioner, and we'll come back to you if we have to. We now go to our panelists, beginning with our Honourable Premier.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I just want to report briefly on today's proceedings in the Legislative Assembly and the meeting of the Standing Orders Committee. We successfully agreed a provision to amend the standing orders subject to His Excellency's approval, which will allow a virtual or electronic meeting of the House to be held tomorrow, when we will consider a number of bills which I previously referred to, amendments to the traffic law, to the National Pensions Law, to the Customs and Border Control Law, and to the Labor Law. Other than that, I just want all of you who sent me a message yesterday to see I got my K back.
All right, with that, we'll go on to His Excellency, who I think is responsible for that K.
Exactly. We had a one spare one upstairs, and I was determined to bring it down today so that we had the K back in its right place. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I think, first of all, just a few brief remarks on sort of where we are. Clearly 8 negatives today, but a lot of tests now going through the system, which is really good news, but we won't get those results until Friday. But I just want to say, I do think if we step back and consider where we are, there is real grounds for hope, and I think we have to remain positive, but I do recognise there's a lot of understandable anxiety and concerns out there at the moment, but we still have a very low number of cases. We don't have very many people in hospital, and we have very few people actually reporting to the flu clinic. So that strategy, social distancing, closing our borders, aggressive testing, tracing and isolating is working. So I think this does give us the chance to think about how we can open up the local economy, but we have to keep this good progress going soon. I would just say that there is clearly still great uncertainty about this virus. If you see what's happening internationally in terms of both developing a vaccine and how quickly that can happen, but also the whole question of immunity to the virus. There's lots of uncertainty out there, so our very cautious approach, I believe, is absolutely the right one. I would also just add that the UK is at the forefront of vaccine development, one of the leading countries helping to find a vaccine. And I think there is a reasonable chance the UK could even be the first country that produces a vaccine. So I think that is important for us to be aware of. And I have a couple of brief announcements about evacuation flights. First of all, to confirm that there will be another flight to Miami on Friday, the 1st of May, leaving at 10:30. Tickets can be booked directly with Cayman Airways by calling 949-2311. But booking will only open tomorrow. Lines will be manned from 9 to 6 on weekdays. So there is no need to ring the travel hotline for that flight. Please ring Cayman Airways. I also just want to say a little bit about the BA Airbridge. Lots of good work going on that. And I think if you have registered with the travel helpline, you should already have received a link to book. But I do want to give the website address for that for everybody else. So it's www.otairbridge, all one word, .com/trips/London-repatriation. That's www.otairbridge.com/trips/London-repatriation. And that link will also be on my Facebook page later this afternoon. The flight to London leaves at 18:05 on Wednesday, the 29th of April, arriving into London Heathrow at 11:35 on Thursday, the 30th, after making a short stop in the Turks and Caicos. If you wish to travel with a pet, please call the Governor's office. There's no limit to what my office can do. It's now dealing with pets on 244-2407, and we'll try and help you. The London office of Cayman Islands Government has asked me to make a point on their behalf. So from the leg from London to Cayman, the Cayman Islands Government office in London is in the process of contacting priority passengers in tranches to provide flight booking and payment details. If you have not been contacted as yet, please stand by, as you will either be contacted later today or tomorrow. Just going back to the Miami flight, I should have made clear that that flight will not bring in anybody from Miami. Our isolation and quarantine facilities are at full capacity at the moment, so there isn't the capacity to receive additional people, including those coming in on the BA flight. We can take those, but then we are at capacity. I also just want to point out that a lot of work is going on behind the scenes now on additional evacuation flights. So there are discussions going on with at least 4 or 5 different governments in the region to try and agree evacuation flights. I don't want to give any more detail on that yet because those discussions are underway, but I want everyone to be aware that that remains a very high priority for my office, and we will keep working hard on that. I will leave it there today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We go now to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon, everyone. Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman, and all the Caymanian diaspora listening. God chose all the women and men who are elected now, and I'm thankful to have been chosen at this time. This is a very unique and unusual time. Thank you to the Bordentown East constituents, so I can be a voice of the voiceless and the face of the faceless. And just like my colleagues, I thank you for your prayers again, and for us, give us strength, wisdom to be able to deal with many challenges that we deal with on a daily basis, and all the persons that we put in place to help us carry out the laws, the police, and CBC, etc. We thank you for your prayers. Today's scripture reading is from Psalm 71, 3-8. Continue to be rock, my place of safety. Command your angels to rescue me. You alone are my rock and my fortress. Deliver me, O my God, from hand of the wicked, from those evil and cruel men. You have always been my hope, O Lord. I have trusted you since my youth. You've protected me since the day I was born and were with me even when I came out of my mother's womb. I will praise you forever. Many have been amazed at how you've protected me again and again. How have you stood by my side? I try to honor you every day in every way. My heart is filled with gratitude. All honor and praise is yours. Lord, add a blessing to the reading of his holy word. Shout out today to the Brasserie Restaurant for providing complimentary lunch daily for the public health staff. I thank you, Brasserie Restaurant. Just also wanted to shout out the CIAA airport staff and the partners up there. You're still hard at work. I thank you for all that you're doing, especially during this difficult time. Also wanted to mention that Lands and Survey is still open for business. You just need to check the website online, and funds can be paid into the RBC's account. In our efforts to have persons stay home as much as possible, one of the main ways that we can fight this this disease, it can't move unless we move it. Translations today will come from Thailand and Sri Lanka. From the country of Thailand, please stay home. Proud Yuban. That was easy. Sri Lanka, which is, they have two main languages, but this one is Sinhala. Karunaka Geride Ine. Okay. Almost broke my tongue on that one. I just wanted to mention again about banks. Getting a lot of complaints from persons in the east, north side, East End, Bodden Town, about their long drive. Some of them are even scared of some of those large roundabouts down there. I'm just telling you, especially the elderly. And some of them don't venture or go even that far. I can tell you, a lot of people in the east don't like to come west. So I'm appealing again to the banks. Yesterday we had people calling saying it was so hot, there were no umbrellas. We had people calling saying that the rain started and they were in the rain. They had to pray and the rain held up. So I'm saying that, I didn't personally experience it, but I'm getting a lot of calls from the bank. So we may have to do something in amending the regulations. This is I didn't consult with anyone about this, but this is my plea. We are at the point, and this panel is not free from all the ills that others are suffering from this COVID-19. At a point where we all are wondering when we come out of this disruption, toward normal life. When can I do at least some of the things I used to do? Yes, this pandemic has a lot of dark sides, and like people are sick, schools are closed, jobs lost, bankruptcies, stress. What's the bright side of COVID-19? Like they always say, look at the bright side of life. And let's make the best of what this crisis gives us. And there's not only threats, but also opportunities. And with opportunities, I don't mean that the crisis provides extra for businesses, for companies like Zoom, as everyone is Zooming now, enabling virtual meetings. With opportunities, I mean general opportunities are available for most people affected by the crisis. For one, you got more time. This shows us how easily it is to clear our calendars. Number two, reflect and reconsider. Reflect on things and to reconsider what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. the things we took for granted. Speed and innovation. We suffer from slow procedures, complex bureaucracies, making organizations' life less pleasant. This has forced us to break through these rigid systems and act instantly. Procedures can be skipped or accelerated, rules can be sidetracked, and decisions can be more autonomously without formal approval. This brings the opportunity to create innovations now that we can maintain after a crisis. Better meetings. People normally spend 23 hours a week in meetings, half of which are considered a failure or waste of time. This crisis has forced us to rethink how we deal with meetings and having them virtually and shorter. Modesty and acceptance. This COVID-19 opportunity is a chance to create awareness for the moderate role we play as this planet and accept that things can always go as we want them to go. In almost every aspect of life, we want to be in control. We live in the illusion that full control is possible. This virus can help us create awareness that this is not the case. It provides an opportunity to take a more modest role and accept that many things are simply beyond our control. I thank you. Today, we celebrate 50 years of Earth Day. In 5 decades since the first Earth Day celebration, millions of people all over the world and right here in Cayman have joined forces to protect their local and global environment, much like what we are doing today to safeguard the health of humanity. The theme for Earth Day 2020 is climate action. On the official website, earthday.org, it reads, "Climate change represents the biggest challenge to the future of humanity and the life support systems that make our world habitable." Here in Cayman, we are doing our part and must continue to do so. Just prior to COVID-19 lockdown, our government was beginning to take steps to formulate a national plan for addressing the many and varied impacts of climate change in our country. I look forward to continuing to work with the Department of Environment and across government and in our community to continue the support in the very near future. We're also fortunate to have organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, Plastic Free Cayman, working to educate volunteers who in turn assist with the cleanups of Cayman's roads and beaches. Private citizens are also doing what they can to reduce the use of single-use products and taking part in the recycling efforts found on the island. We are thankful to businesses who provide reusable products and to the grocery stores who allow the drop-off of recyclables. We appreciate the efforts of thrift shops and recycling clothing and other gently used but like new items. The National Trust and the Botanic Park continues to work in tandem to preserve and protect the health and the habitat of the endangered Cayman blue iguana. The Department of Environment, in its conservation efforts, works to ensure the preservation of the wild banana orchid, the Cayman parrot, the Cayman grouper, conch, lobster, and many endemic species of the flora and fauna of these islands. In fact, DOE officers continue to assume responsibility for the supplementary feeding of the rays at the Stingray City. The DOE is committed to reinforcing the rays association between boats, humans, and food with a regular feeding schedule. This will continue until marine curfew restrictions are relaxed and the private sector can start visiting the sites once again. Of course, for our friends at the Department of Environmental Health, every day is Earth Day. Our sanitation and landfill crews continue to work diligently every day to collect and dispose of garbage. As an update to questions asked in yesterday's briefing, the DEH is still collecting recyclables from the depots, but is unable to do any processing at this time. The recycling process was stopped due to the full power. The recycling depot was actually operating off a generator, and it had to be changed over to full power in CUC. So that was going on. So during this time, the staff was reassigned because they were not considered essential at the time while they were doing this reconstruction. Since yesterday, the power has been restored and staff will now be returned to their recycling duties. So that's great news. We are very keen and committed to keeping this program going. But they're performing with limitations based on the risks, since they have to physically handle these items to do the separations for proper baling. I'd also like to reassure the public that while slow due to this crisis, we are working towards some initiatives that will assist in the protection of the Cayman Islands environment, like stopping illegal dumping and the reduction of single-use plastics. Today, and more than ever, we acknowledge the impact human beings have in the world, and as a silver lining to the threat of the coronavirus, we have tangible proof that when we act together, we can impact the world, good or bad. We see it in the clear skies of India and China, the now pristine canals of Venice, and we see it in the animals that are traversing towns and city blocks. We have even witnessed the clustering of our own Cayman parrots in images shared recently. We can all acknowledge the beauty, common effects, and importance of nature. In Cayman, we are fortunate to still have a beautiful and healthy natural environment, and I believe that in our current circumstances, we share with people across the globe the realization and perhaps greater appreciation of how very important this is to our physical and mental well-being. Today, we celebrate 50 years of Earth Day, and it is a blessing to see what the world is and can be if we join forces, if we act together. So not every bad thing that happens will have only negative outcomes. As the old saying goes, everything under the sun has its purpose. Let us be thankful today for these beautiful islands which we are blessed to call home, and let's continue to care for each other and for the planet. Remember, to stay home is Caymankind, and extending a helping hand to someone in need and taking care of our planet is everyone's business. I wish you all a good and health and happiness on this Earth Day as we look forward to the brighter days ahead. May God continue to bless our beloved islands, Cayman. Also wanted to, young lady sent something in to us, and she abbreviated the words corona and what it means to us here in Cayman. Young lady named Tony Whitaker. She said the C is for causing hardship throughout the world. O is for obstructing life for man, woman, boy, and girl. R is for restricting the way we live day by day. O is objectively making us live a whole new life. N is never forget you are not alone. And A is for always obey the rules and always stay at home. I thank you, and God bless.
All right, thank you very much, Minister Seymour. We're going to go straight to members of the press, starting with Ralph from the Caymanian Times. Ralph?
Good afternoon, gentlemen on the panel, and Donna, and thank you for your presentations. My topic today is on security, and I'd like to pose a question to the governor and maybe get some feedback from the commissioner or other members of the panel. Can you just clarify for me, sir, who is responsible for security for the Cayman Islands? Is it the UK government or the local government?
So, hi, Ralph. Security is a responsibility of the governor under the Constitution. Obviously, the UK has that responsibility through me as the governor.
Okay, good. So I'm posing the question to the right person. Okay, as we look forward to eventually a gradual reopening of the Cayman, we hear experts talking about a new normal. Looking at security, for example, how will things be different? And another example is, I work in the banking sector for a while. I remember going into the bank and you'd have to remove your hat and your glasses and your hoodies before you approach the premises. Now, going forward, we'll be wearing masks. There's also a matter of wearing a mask, which is normally for some countries. However, it poses security risks here in identifying people. How much of a concern is this for you and maybe other members of the panel?
Well, I think I'll let the police commissioner comment on that if he wishes to a little bit later. But I think what we've said this before, that if we are going to come out of this, a lot is going to have to change if you want to get back to the sort of life we enjoyed before. So things like social distancing and wearing masks and basic hygiene, all of those things are going to be with us for quite a long time whilst a vaccine is developed. So we will need to adapt our procedures and practices, and we can benefit from what other countries are doing because they're ahead of us in this curve, so we can benefit from how they are handling these things.
The only thing I might add to that is about the technology that was being developed many years ago, which should be deployed. If we see the norm is that we need to wear masks for a very long time before they find a vaccine, then there's some new technology that could be employed in the banks, some imaging technology, which I won't go into any detail, but some of those things, some recognizing technology that could be used even if you're wearing a mask. So that may bring some comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Commissioner?
Good afternoon, Alf. I think your question was twofold. And the first part, a little bit amusing. Many years ago, we asked people to remove masks and helmets to prevent robberies. And that was the whole idea. We could identify persons who couldn't go in and commit robberies. Now, as the governor said, we must adapt the idea of wearing the masks. If that becomes a requirement into the future, it's a health. It's a new environment for us. So we have to work within that environment. But we're looking at two completely different situations, years apart.
Okay. So maybe I could ask one more question. Would you see a larger police presence on the island in this new security areas?
I don't. I mean, I think security is more about, it's more than policing. Border security is just as important, how you control your exterior borders and then manage your internal borders. So policing is just one aspect. We work with CBC then and the Coast Guard, which will be very, very much operationalized later in the year. So protecting our borders is one part of securitization and national security as part of that architecture. At the moment, there's nothing to suggest there's anything going on in crime. I've repeatedly said it's very stable. We'll move through the process and we'll see how that goes, and we'll adapt with the environment we're presented with post-COVID-19.
Okay, thank you for your responses.
Commissioner, we do have a question for you before you leave from Wendy at CNS. Wendy, please go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. I appreciate that. I couldn't get through to you before. Sorry, I had some technical meltdown problems. Commissioner, I keep getting questions from people in the public about what they do to report different types of curfew breaches. I know you've said in the past to call 911, but I've had some reports today that people who've attempted to call 911 to report what's going on have been told, no, you shouldn't be calling us. So just some clarity on where reports should be made for curfew breaching. Thank you.
So it's definitely 911. I mean, that's a request for police service, which all are channeled through 911 and are centrally recorded. And the idea then is once they're recorded, we can dispatch a unit and there's a record through our central management, the record management system. So I don't know where there would be any dispute that it would be 911 to receive the call and dispatch the police unit. That remains the same.
Thank you, Commissioner. We now go to Kayla from the Compass. She has a few questions for members of the panel.
Hi. I'd like to start off with a question for the governor regarding the evacuation flights. You mentioned that there's a possibility of pets going on the BA flight. Is that also a possibility for the Miami flights?
I'd have to check that. I'm not sure that is the case at the moment for that Miami flight, but we'll check that and try and confirm it through before we finish this press conference if we can.
Okay, great. And is there any concern about the recent announcement from the U.S. president about closing immigration, that could affect evacuation flights from Cayman?
I mean, I think that just adds to the general challenge of organising all of these flights, because many countries have different rules and procedures. Some countries are not allowing anyone to go back in. We're looking at trying to get people back to India, but we can't send anyone back to India at the moment because they've closed their borders to anybody until early May. So, of course, things like that decision by the US could have an impact on us, and we'll have to review that as we try and work out how we can organise the various flights.
Great. My next questions are for the Premier regarding pensions, of course, the topic on everyone's minds. The pension holiday, I'd like to clarify that the 5% employee contribution that would typically be taken out of their paychecks, that will remain in their paychecks. Their employers won't be deducting that, correct?
It shouldn't. The pension holiday it removes the obligation of employees to make the contribution and employers to make the contribution and to pay it to the pensions administrator starting on the 1st of April, retroactive to the 1st of April. So in other words, the payment which would normally be made in May would not be required to be made. If employer and employee voluntarily wish to continue payments, they can, but they will go into the voluntary contributions column in the pensions account.
I could just come back, Carla, on the question about pets and the Cayman Airways flight. There is a very limited scope to doing that, but it could be possible, but people should have spoken to Cayman Airways when they reserved their tickets.
Okay, thank you, Governor. Back to the pensions question. For people who have left island, will they be able to process requests online and receive the money off island?
If they left Cayman before the 20th of February, they're not entitled to participate in this process.
Okay. But if they left after the 20th of February, they would be able to process requests online?
If they're living in the jurisdiction, yes.
Okay. So if someone leaves the jurisdiction now, for example, how would they handle accessing their pension?
They better arrange it before they leave.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. And yeah, those are all my questions for now.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to go now to Wendy from CNS. Wendy, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. This is for the Premier. I've just seen on the labour law changes, which I'm sure very welcome, the extra 30-day pay. But what I was wondering is, because this does seem to be preoccupying an awful lot of people, is the situation with health insurance. I know you've mentioned before people must pay it, but it seems that people are being sacked and therefore they've lost access to their policy, or in other cases, employers are just not paying. I just wondered whether you could sort of tell us, give the public an idea of what should be going on and what contingency plans government has, because this could end up being a huge bill if government's going to be paying everybody's hospital bills.
Indeed, which is why we are working so hard to get people who are unemployed, who are not Caymanian, to return to their home countries, because we don't have the wherewithal to carry all of that expense. So the amendment to the labor law is to extend the current 30-day period, which is provided for in the law, that you can essentially lay someone off without terminating them, and therefore being required to pay severance, to extend that to 60 days, because we're trying to encourage employers to keep people on longer, while hopefully things get easier in terms of employment. And during the currency of their employment, they'll be covered by health insurance. Now, if employers are not paying the health insurance premiums, employers are required as a matter of law to pay at least half. Many employers opt to pay for the whole thing, but they're required to pay at least half of the health insurance premiums. So if they are not, they're in breach of the law. And so are the employees who don't make the contribution either. But of course, we all know we are in a time of exigency, and you simply may not have the means, employees simply may not have the means to pay it. As to what government does is one of our great worries. If we wind up with a significant number of people here without any health insurance cover, it does mean the government is going to have to pick up the tab, as we've done ever since.
Okay, thank you.
If we have no more questions from members of the press, we're going to wrap up today's press briefing, which I think gives you a bit of a break today. Premier McLaughlin, if you have some final remarks you'd like to make.
I just want to clarify something, Donna. There will not be the COVID-19 standard press briefing tomorrow, principally because the House will be sitting and CIG and GIS can't carry both. And Radio Cayman can't carry both the press conference and the proceedings in the Legislative Assembly. There's also the matter that both myself and Minister Seymour will be engaged in the Legislative Assembly. So the conference to which Dr. Lee referred will carry on. I'm not sure what time has been fixed.
2 p.m. Well, it'll air at 2 p.m. It'll air at 2 p.m., but we'll still have live going on for LA.
Okay, I was told it was going to air at 8 a.m. But anyhow, they'll sort that out. But that is the reason why the standard press conference about COVID-19 won't proceed.
Thank you very much, Premier McLaughlin. Before we go, again, a reminder that you can go online to gov.ky/coronavirus for answers to your most pressing questions there, as well as eservices.gov.ky for answers there as well. Also, I'd like to announce that those of you who may be having issues getting through to the Cayman Islands Center for Business, their phone number 244-8009 seems to be having some technical problems. So they're asking persons to get in touch with them via email. That email address is cicbd@gov.ky. Again, that's if their phone lines are not working, and they seem to have been having some issues today on that. Thank you again to everyone who's made today's press briefing possible, to our panel, of course, and to you, the public, for joining us. We invite you to join us again tomorrow for another press briefing with the medical professionals from the HSA, Health City, and Doctors Hospital. Coming up, we invite you to take a look at today's regional and worldwide statistics.